Now the next sutta, number 51. Once the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park. On that occasion the Exalted One addressed the monks, saying, Monks, though a monk be not skilled in the habit of others' thoughts, at least he can resolve, I will be skilled in the habit of my own thought. Thus, monks, should you train yourselves. I stop here for a moment. Here the Buddha is saying is that even though a monk, he is not able to read other people's minds, at least he should be able to read his habitual thoughts, his own mind. So he should train himself to always read his own mind. Then the Buddha continued, and how is a monk skilled in the habit of his own thought? Just as if monks, a man or woman or a young lad fond of self-adornment, examining the reflection of his own face in a bright, clean mirror or bowl of clear water, should see therein a stain or speck, and strive for the removal of that stain or speck. And when he no longer sees it there, is pleased and satisfied thereat, thinking, Again it is to me that I am clean. Even so, a monk's introspection is most fruitful in good conditions. Thus, do I or do I not generally live covetous? That means greedy for others' things. Do I or do I not generally live malevolent in heart or with ill will? Do I or do I not generally live possessed by sloth and torpor? Do I or do I not generally live restless in mind? Do I or do I not generally live in doubt and wavering? Do I or do I not generally live wrathful, or with soiled thoughts, or with body passionate, or sluggish without energy? Or do I live uncontrolled or not? Monks, if on self-examination a monk finds thus, I generally live covetous, malevolent in heart, possessed by sloth and torpor, excited in mind, doubtful and wavering, wrathful, with soiled thoughts, with body passionate, sluggish and uncontrolled, then that monk must put forth extra desire, effort, endeavor, exertion, impulse, mindfulness and attention for the abandoning of those wicked, unprofitable states. Just as monks, when one's turban or head is ablaze, for the extinguishing thereof one must put forth extra desire, effort, endeavor, exertion, unflagging mindfulness and attention. Even so, for the abandoning of those wicked, unprofitable states, one must do the same. But if on self-examination a monk finds thus, I do not generally live covetous, etc., then that monk should make an effort to establish just those profitable states, and further to destroy the asavas. That's the end of the suttas. Asavas here means uncontrolled mental outflows. If a person destroys the asavas, he becomes an arahant. So here this sutta is talking about the practice of right effort. Practice of right effort, we are supposed to examine these qualities, those bad, unwholesome qualities inside us, we should get rid of and cultivate good qualities. So this is, in the Noble Eightfold Path, right effort is one of the factors pertaining to meditation. Sometimes people practice meditation, they forget to examine their own mind. Sometimes some people, they observe outside, a lot of things outside. They are very mindful, a lot of things outside. But meditation must begin from inside. We must see all these things that pass through our mind. So what is unwholesome we should get rid of. Here is mentioned 5 things: covetousness, malevolence, sloth and torpor, restlessness, doubt. These 5 things are called the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances that prevent us from seeing things as they really are. So these we have to get rid of, and other unwholesome qualities like soiled thoughts, passionate thoughts, sluggish mind, no energy, uncontrolled mind, etc. So this is another very practical sutta in teaching us how to practice the Dhamma. The next sutta is number 60. Once the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi in Jeta Grove, Anathapindika's park. Now on that occasion, the Venerable Girimananda was sick, suffering, stricken with a sore disease. And the Venerable Ananda came to see the Exalted One and said this to him after paying respect, etc. Sir, the Venerable Girimananda is sick, suffering, stricken with a sore disease. It would be well, sir, if the Exalted One were to visit him out of compassion for him. And the Buddha said, if you, Ananda, were to visit the monk Girimananda and recite to him the 10 perceptions, there are grounds for supposing that when he hears them, that sickness will be allayed there and then. In other words, cured there and then. What are the 10 perceptions? Sanya. The perception of impermanence, of not-self, of the foul or unattractiveness, of wretchedness, of abandoning, of dispassion, of cessation, of distaste for the world, of impermanence in all conditioners, of recollection of breathing. And what, Ananda, is the perception of impermanence? Herein, a monk who has gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or a lonely place thus contemplates. Impermanent is objective form, impermanent are feelings, impermanent are perceptions, impermanent are volitions, and impermanent is consciousness. Thus he abides seeing impermanence in these 5 grasped at aggregates. This is called the perception of impermanence. I stop here for a moment. This first perception, the Buddha says, to contemplate is the perception of impermanence, anicca, or anicca sanya. Here, the Buddha says we should contemplate that these 5 things are impermanent. Form, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Form means the body, and then the others refer to the mind, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Now these 5 things, all beings generally take to be the self, because we associate these 5 things with ourself. Either we think that they are the self, or they belong to the self, or they are inside the self, or the self is inside these 5 aggregates. So these are called the 5 grasp at aggregates, clung at aggregates. So we should see them as impermanent. So if we see that these 5 aggregates, we perceive that they are impermanent, then we won't cling to them so much. If we cling to these 5 aggregates, we cling to this body and mind, then because they are impermanent, they will change. They will grow old, they will become sick, and it will die. And if we cling to it, we will suffer when it changes. That is why we have to see the impermanence in this body and mind. And then the Buddha continued, and what, Ananda, is the perception of not-self, anatta sanya? Herein, a monk who has gone to the forest, etc., thus contemplates. The eye is not the self. Objective form is not the self. The ear is not the self. Sounds are not the self. Nose and sense are not the self. Tongue and taste are not the self. Body and tangibles are not the self. Mind and thoughts are not the self. Thus he abides, seeing not self, in those 6 outer and inner bases. This Ananda is called the perception of not self. Stop here for a moment to explain. Here the Buddha talks about 6 outer and 6 inner bases. The 6 inner bases are the 6 sense organs. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and the mind. And then the 6 outer sense bases are form that the eye sees, sound that the ear hears, smells, taste, touch and thoughts. So we should perceive that the 6 inner sense bases and the 6 outer bases, sense bases, is not self, because they are impermanent. This anatta means something, means not self, and not self means self means atta. Self means that which is permanent, never changing. But everything in the world is changing. Everything in the world is impermanent. So there is nothing in the world that is self. Then the third one. And what Ananda is the perception of the foul or unattractiveness, asubha sanya. Herein a monk examines the body, upwards from the soles of the feet, downwards from the top of the head, enclosed by skin, full of manifold impurities. There are in this body, there are head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, midriff, spleen, lung, bowel, entrail, gorge, dung, brain, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tear, grease, spittle, snot, all of the joint, urine. Thus he abides observant of the foul or unattractiveness of the body. This Ananda is called the perception of the foul or unattractiveness of the body. So this, stop here for a moment to comment. This is called the meditation on the unattractiveness of the body. Normally we are attracted to the body of the opposite sex because we see it as very attractive, because we only see the outer part of the body. As they say, beauty is only skin deep. When you go deeper than the skin, then you find all these things which are inside the body. And we contemplate these 32 things of the body, then we will find the body is not attractive as we thought. So if we practice this contemplation long, then when we look at a person, we are able to perceive not only the outside but also the inside of the body, and that helps us to cut lust, cut sensual desire for the body. And then the next one. And what Ananda is the perception of wretchedness, adinava sanya. Herein a monk who has gone to the forest, etc., thus contemplates. This body has many ills, many wretchednesses. Thus in this body arise diverse diseases, such as disease of eyesight and hearing, of nose, tongue, trunk, head, ear, mouth, teeth. There is cough, asthma, running nose, fever, feebleness, decrepitude, belly ache, fainting, diarrhea, griping or intestinal pain, cholera, leprosy, eczema, TB, tuberculosis, epilepsy, skin disease, itch, scab, scabies, jaundice, diabetes, piles, boils, ulcers, diseases arising from bile, from phlegm, from wind, from bodily humours, from changes of the seasons, from stress of circumstances, from the ripeness of one's karma, and also cold and heat, hunger and thirst, bowel movement and urination. Thus he abides observant of the wretchedness of this body. This Ananda is called the perception of wretchedness. Stop here for a moment. So here we can see that this body can gives us all kinds of wretchedness and all kinds of suffering from the many types of sickness that we can get. So we should constantly contemplate this. And then the Buddha continued, and what Ananda is the perception of abandoning. Pahana Sanya. Herein a monk admits not sensual thinking that has arisen, but abandons, restrains, makes an end of it, forces it not to recur. He admits not malicious thinking, harmful thinking, evil and unprofitable states that arise from time to time, but abandons, restrains, makes an end of them, forces them not to recur. This Ananda is called the perception of abandoning. I'll stop here for a moment. So here, abandoning means examining all the wrong thoughts we have, abandoning all the wrong thoughts of sensual thoughts, malicious thoughts. Malicious means ill will, having ill will, and harmful thoughts. And the Buddha continued, and what Ananda is the perception of dispassion, viraga, sanya. Herein a monk who has gone to the forest, etc., thus contemplates, this is the real, this is the excellent, namely the calming of all conditioners, the casting off of every basis, the destruction of craving, dispassion, nibbana. This Ananda is called the perception of dispassion. Let's stop here for a moment. Raga is passion, so viraga is dispassion. Dispassion for all the things of the world, and then the calming down of all the conditioners. Conditioners are, this Pali word is sankhara. Sometimes it's translated as conditioned things. Probably conditioners is a better translation. It means everything in the world, because everything in the world is conditioned as well as conditioning other things. So it is also known as conditioners. So if all the things in the world are calmed down, and then you have this destruction of craving, dispassion, then you arrive at Nibbana. And the Buddha continued, and what is the perception of cessation, nirodha? Herein a monk who has gone to the forest, etc., thus contemplates, this is the real, this is the excellent. And the same way, namely the calming of all conditioners, the casting off of every basis, the destruction of craving, cessation, nibbana. This Ananda is called the perception of cessation. Stop here for a moment. This is almost the same as the previous one, but instead of dispassion, here we have cessation. And then to continue, and what Ananda is the perception of distaste for the whole world. Sabaloke anabhirata sanya. Herein a monk, by abandoning, by not clinging to those graspings of systems, those mental standpoints and dogmatic bias that are in the world, delights not therein. This is called the perception of distaste for the whole world. Stop here for a moment. That means this monk is no more concerned with all the views in the world. He's put down all the views, and he develops a distaste for the whole world. And what Ananda is the perception of impermanence of all conditioners. Sabha sankaresu anicca sanya. Herein a monk is troubled by, ashamed of, and disgusted with all the conditioned things or conditioners. This is called the perception of impermanence of all conditioners. Let's stop here for a moment. This is also similar to the perception of impermanence, that everything in the world is impermanent, so is disgusted with it. And to continue, and what Ananda is the recollection of the breath, anapanasati. Herein a monk who has gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or a lonely place sits down cross-legged, holding the body upright and setting mindfulness in front of him. He breathes in mindfully and mindfully breathes out. As he draws in a long breath, he knows, a long breath I draw in. As he breathes out a long breath, he knows, a long breath I breathe out. As he draws in a short breath, he knows, a short breath I breathe in. As he breathes out a short breath, he knows, a short breath I breathe out. He puts into practice the intention, I shall breathe in, feeling it go through the whole body. Feeling it go through the whole body, I shall breathe out. Calming down the body aggregate, I shall breathe in. Calming down the body aggregate, I shall breathe out. Feeling the thrill of zest, the thrill of piti, delight, I shall breathe in and out. Feeling the sense of ease, I shall breathe in and out. Aware of all mental factors, I shall breathe in and out. Calming down the mental factors, I shall breathe in and out. Gladdening my mind, I shall breathe in and out. Composing my mind, I shall breathe in and out. Detaching my mind, I shall breathe in and out. Contemplating impermanence, I shall breathe in and out. Contemplating dispassion, contemplating ending, contemplating renunciation, I shall breathe in and out. This Ananda is called the recollection of breathing. Now Ananda, if you were to visit the monk Girimananda and recite to him these 10 perceptions, there is ground for supposing that on his hearing them, that sickness of his will straight away be cured. Thereupon the Venerable Ananda, having learned by heart these 10 perceptions in the presence of the Exalted One, visited the Venerable Girimananda and recited them. On his hearing them, that sickness of the Venerable Girimananda was straight away cured, and he rose up from that sickness. And in this way, that sickness was banished from the Venerable Girimananda. So you see here, that's the end of the sutta, that for a monk such as this Venerable Girimananda, who has great love of the Dhamma, when he hears this type of Dhamma recited, he is so happy that the sickness was cured. Venerable Moggallana also at one time was sick, and the Venerable and the Buddha went to see him and also chanted to him the Bojjhangas, the factors of enlightenment, and he was so happy to hear that he also got cured of the sickness. These 10 perceptions here are quite useful things to contemplate. The perception of impermanence, of not self, of unattractiveness of the body, the wretchedness of the body, of abandoning, of dispassion, of cessation, distaste for the whole world, or impermanence of all conditioners, and recollection of breathing. The next sutta, I think I have time to talk on, sutta number 61. The Buddha said, monks, the extreme point of ignorance is not apparent, so that one may say, ignorance was not before, it has since come to be. And this statement, monks, is made. Nevertheless, one thing is apparent. Ignorance is conditioned by this or that. Ignorance, I declare, monks, has its nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment of ignorance? The 5 hindrances should be the reply. I declare, monks, that the 5 hindrances have their nutriment, are not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment of the 5 hindrances? The 3 wrong ways of conduct should be the reply. Duccharita. They too have their nutriment. What? Non-restraint of the sense faculties should be the reply. They too have their nutriment. What is that? Lack of mindfulness and self-composure should be the reply. That too has its nutriment, I declare. What is that? Anguttara consideration, yoniso manasikara, should be the reply. And what is the nutriment of that? Lack of faith should be the reply. What is the nutriment of that? Not listening to true Dhamma. I declare, monks, that not listening to true Dhamma has its nutriment, is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment of not listening to true Dhamma? Not following after the true man should be the reply. Thus, monks, the act of not following after the true man completes not listening to the true Dhamma. Not listening to the true Dhamma completes lack of faith, or leads to lack of faith. Lack of faith leads to Anguttara consideration, which leads to lack of mindfulness and self-composure, which leads to non-restraint of the sense faculties, and which leads to the three wrong ways of conduct, and that leads to the five hindrances, and the five hindrances leads to ignorance. Such is the nutriment of this ignorance, such is its fulfillment. Just as when monks on a mountain, the rain falls in heavy drops, that water flowing down onwards according to the slope fills up the mountain clefts and rifts and gullies, and they, when filled up, fill up the little pools, and the little pools in turn fill up the big pools, and they in turn fill up the small rivers. They fill the large rivers, and the large rivers in turn fill up the sea, the mighty ocean. Thus is the nutriment of the mighty ocean, and thus its fulfillment. In the same way, monks, not following after the true man leads to not listening to the true Dhamma, which leads eventually to the five hindrances and to ignorance. Conversely, released by knowledge, monks, I declare, has its nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment of release by knowledge? The 7 factors of enlightenment, Bojjhanga, should be the reply. The 7 factors of enlightenment, I declare, have their nutriment. What? The 4 intense states of recollection, Satipatthana, should be the reply. They too have their nutriment. The 3 right ways of conduct, and they too have their nutriment. Control of the sense faculties, and the nutriment of these is mindfulness and self-possession, and the nutriment is thorough consideration, and the nutriment is faith, and the nutriment of that is listening to the true Dhamma, and the nutriment of that is following after the true man. Thus, monks, following after the true man, when completes listening to the true Dhamma. Listening to true Dhamma completes faith. Faith completes or leads to thorough consideration, and that leads to mindfulness and self-control, and that to control of the sense faculties, and that to the 3 right ways of conduct, and that leads to the 4 intense states of recollection, and that leads to the 7 factors of enlightenment, and that leads to liberation or release by knowledge. Yeah. So this sutta is telling us that if we want to practice and get out of samsara, we have to start by associating with a true man. A true man is one who understands the Dhamma, who understands the discourses of the Dhamma, of this Buddha. And if you listen to the teachings of a true man, you are listening to the teachings of the Buddha. And that, if you listen to the teachings of the Buddha, then you will have faith. And when you have faith, then you will cultivate this thorough consideration, yoniso manasikara. So when you cultivate yoniso manasikara, then you have mindfulness and self-possession, or mindfulness and recollection, and that leads to control of the sense faculties, and that leads to the 3 right ways of conduct, and that leads to the 4 intense states of recollection, and that leads to the 7 factors of enlightenment, which leads to liberation. So associating with a true man And listening to the true Dhamma and being able to listen to the true Dhamma is very, very important, because it leads us to have faith, and also it teaches us the way to practice the true Dhamma that will eventually lead us to liberation. So I think I'll stop here for tonight, and if you have any comments or questions, we can discuss. Anybody has any question? The Buddha said, whatever a monk teaches, you have to compare it with the suttas and the Vinaya. So if you compare what a monk teaches is consistent with the suttas, then you can accept his teachings. But if it's not consistent with the suttas, then you should not learn from him. So the criterion is always the Dhamma. It is not the man himself, it is the Dhamma. Whether the Dhamma conforms to the suttas or not. So if you are not familiar with the suttas, you can't judge. Yes or not? You have no basis to judge if you are not familiar with the suttas. You must always have a foundation, right? If you want to build something, you must have always a foundation. So in the same way, you want to be able to judge a teacher, you must have that foundation of the suttas to compare with. So if you don't have that foundation, then it's just have to trust your luck. Because a lot of people don't have that foundation to judge, so they follow a teacher for many years. If they are lucky, they follow a teacher for many years and they are not disappointed in the end. But there are some people, unfortunately, they can spend many years following a teacher, and at the end of it, then they become very disappointed.